The instant your salary lands in your bank account, you've got roughly 15 seconds before your mind begins making disastrous money choices. I'm being serious here. 15 seconds is all the time it takes for the majority of individuals to mentally allocate cash they haven't even touched yet. Your mind begins computing how much you can spend on that latest device, how frequently you can get delivery food this month, or whether you can finally purchase those items that have been waiting in your digital cart since last week. But what if I shared with you that those identical 15 seconds could be the distinction between remaining financially stuck forever and genuinely creating substantial wealth? What if there existed a straightforward system you could implement every single time you receive payment that would automatically position you ahead of 90% of individuals financially? My name is Peter, and I've dedicated years assisting individuals figure out what to do with their cash the instant it appears in their accounts. If you're exhausted from questioning where all your money vanishes every month and you genuinely want to construct something significant with your earnings, make certain to subscribe to this channel and press that like button if this content proves valuable to you. Here's something that might really surprise you. The typical individual has absolutely no idea what occurs to their money after they receive payment. They understand their housing payment gets handled somehow, groceries materialize in their kitchen, and their streaming platform subscription mysteriously continues itself. But aside from that, it's total financial disorder. They're essentially financial zombies wandering through existence, questioning why they never have anything remaining at the conclusion of the month. The truth is that the majority of individuals treat their salary like an unexpected gift, instead of treating it like the powerful wealth-creating instrument it genuinely is. They become enthusiastic when it shows up, allocate most of it on random items they likely don't require, and then dedicate the following 2 weeks consuming budget meals for supper and monitoring their bank balance constantly. But accomplished individuals do something totally different. They possess a framework. They possess a system, and that system begins the instant their payment shows up. It's not complex, it's not flashy, and it certainly won't earn you 1 million followers on digital platforms, but it functions. And it functions so effectively that once you begin implementing it, you'll question how you ever handled your cash any other method. The secret is comprehending that your salary isn't merely money you generated. It's your future financial independence divided into monthly portions. Every dollar that enters your account is a small construction piece that can either add to your wealth or vanish into the void of thoughtless spending. Most individuals approach their finances in reverse. They cover all their obligations, purchase whatever they desire, and then attempt to preserve whatever's remaining. Spoiler notification, there's never anything remaining. It's like attempting to fill a container with a massive opening at the base and questioning why you can't retain any liquid. The individuals who genuinely construct wealth reverse this entire procedure. They compensate themselves first, distribute every dollar with purpose, and make their cash work as intensely as they do to generate it. They comprehend that financial achievement isn't about generating more income, although that definitely assists. It's about possessing a framework that functions regardless of how much you generate. Consider it this manner. If you generate $50,000 annually, and you preserve and invest 10% of it reliably, you're going to be in superior financial condition than someone who generates $100,000 annually, but allocates every cent they generate. The individual generating less income but implementing a framework will retire pleasantly, while the higher earner will be laboring until they're 80 because they never discovered how to handle what they possessed. This leads us to the foundation of everything we're going to discuss today. Before you can construct wealth, you must understand precisely where your cash is traveling. And I mean precisely. Not some unclear concept about your significant costs, but an exact comprehension of how every dollar gets distributed. The initial phase in our payment system is something that sounds uninteresting, but is absolutely essential to your financial achievement. You must establish what percentage of your earnings travels toward essentials. These are the items you literally cannot exist without. We're discussing housing expenses like rent or your home loan payment, nourishment that genuinely keeps you living, fundamental transportation, critical utilities, and medical care. Notice I didn't incorporate your premium television package, your fitness membership you never utilize, or your subscription to 17 separate streaming platforms. Those might seem essential when you're viewing your preferred program, but they're not genuinely required for your existence. Here's where most individuals get this totally incorrect. They examine their costs and persuade themselves that everything is an essential. That costly vehicle payment becomes critical transportation. The daily cafe visits become essential energy for efficiency. The weekly dining establishment meals become vital social gatherings. But here's the reality verification you likely don't want to receive. If you're allocating more than 60% of your after-tax compensation on genuine essentials, you're either residing somewhere too costly for your earnings or you're labeling luxuries essentials because it makes you feel superior about your allocation selections. Let me provide you an actual example that might assist put this in viewpoint. Picture someone generating $75,000 annually. After taxes, they're receiving home roughly $4,750 each month. If their rent is $1,800, their vehicle payment is $400, and they allocate $500 on nourishment, they're already at $2,700 in monthly costs. That's about 57% of their after-tax compensation, which is genuinely pretty sensible for someone residing in a higher expense region. But here's where it becomes fascinating. That identical individual might examine their budget and consider they're barely surviving, particularly if they're also covering streaming platforms, dining out consistently, purchasing cafe beverages every day, and making other small purchases that seem insignificant individually, but accumulate to hundreds of dollars monthly. The secret is being brutally truthful about what you genuinely require versus what you desire. Your future financial independence depends on your capacity to make this distinction clearly and reliably. Once you understand your genuine essential percentage, you'll understand precisely how much cash you possess available for everything else. And everything else is where the transformation occurs. This is where you can begin constructing wealth instead of merely surviving payment to payment. The second essential phase occurs before you even consider allocating cash on anything enjoyable or discretionary. You must make certain you're remaining current on any debt obligations you might possess. This isn't about clearing all your debt instantly, although that's definitely a worthy objective. This is about safeguarding your credit rating and preventing late charges that can demolish your financial advancement. Your credit rating is like your financial standing, and in our present economic framework, that standing influences almost everything. It establishes what interest percentage you'll cover on a home loan, whether you can qualify for a reasonable vehicle financing, and sometimes even whether you can lease an apartment or obtain certain positions. Here's something that might surprise you about credit ratings. The distinction between outstanding credit handling and terrible credit handling frequently comes down to just one overlooked payment. If you make 99% of your payments punctually, that's considered acceptable. But if you decrease to 97% punctual payments, your credit rating declines dramatically. Consider that for a moment. In education, 97% would earn you the highest grade. In credit evaluation, it gets you classified as a high-threat borrower. The credit framework is unforgiving, but the principles are straightforward. Make your minimum payments punctually every time, and your credit rating will handle itself. This phase isn't attractive and it won't make you feel wealthy, but it's absolutely critical for long-term financial achievement. Consider it the foundation that everything else gets constructed on top of. Now that we've addressed the foundation, it's time to discuss something that most individuals totally disregard until it's too late. Constructing an emergency reserve, I understand. Emergency reserves are about as thrilling as observing paint drying in slow motion. But remain with me here because this might be the most significant component of your entire financial approach. An emergency reserve is precisely what it sounds like. It's cash you set aside for when existence decides to throw you an unexpected challenge. And trust me, existence loves throwing unexpected challenges. Your vehicle malfunctions the day before your significant presentation. Your computer fails right when you require it most. Your pet consumes something costly and requires emergency treatment on a random weekday. The objective is to possess 3 to 6 months of your living costs preserved in an account that you can access instantly, not invested in the market where it might decrease in value right when you require it most, not secured in some deposit certificate where you can't access it for 6 months, just positioned there in an uninteresting savings account, prepared to rescue you when everything travels incorrectly. Let's return to our earlier example. If someone's monthly essentials cost $2,700, their emergency reserve should be somewhere between $8,000 and $16,000. That might sound like an impossible quantity of cash to preserve, particularly if you're presently existing payment to payment. But remember, you're not attempting to preserve it all immediately. Here's the aspect about emergency reserves that nobody discusses. They're not merely about the cash, they're about mental tranquility. When you possess 3 to 6 months of costs positioned in your savings account, you rest differently at night. You walk into employment with more assurance, because you understand that if something occurs to your position, you won't be consuming budget noodles and residing in your vehicle next month. But here's where most individuals mess this up totally. They consider their emergency reserve needs to be generating amazing gains, so they invest it in hazardous assets or secure it in accounts they can't access rapidly. Then when an actual emergency occurs, their cash is either worth less than when they positioned it in, or they can't obtain it without covering penalties. Your emergency reserve should be accessible and uninteresting. Position it in a high-return savings account that's protected by the government and consider it finished. You're not attempting to become wealthy from your emergency reserve. You're attempting to remain financially stable when existence becomes disorderly. Once your emergency reserve is established, you've officially advanced from financial survival mode to wealth-creating mode. This is where things become fascinating, and it's where most individuals begin seeing genuine advancement toward their financial objectives. Phase 4 is where you begin investing for your future self, and this is where the transformation of compound interest begins to function in your advantage. If your company provides any kind of retirement account with matching dollars, this should be your absolute initial priority for investing. Consider company matching like this. If your supervisor approached you every month and proposed to provide you free cash in exchange for you positioning some of your own cash into a retirement account, you'd consider they'd lost their reasoning, correct? But that's literally what company matching is. It's free cash that most individuals abandon on the surface because they don't comprehend how powerful it is. Let's say your organization matches 3% of your salary, and you generate $60,000 annually. That means if you add $1,800 yearly to your retirement account, your company will also add $1,800. You just duplicated your cash instantly. Show me another investment that promises a 100% gain on day one. Beyond the company match, you should aim to invest about 10% of your total earnings for retirement. This might sound like a substantial amount, particularly if you're just beginning, but remember, this cash is functioning for you over multiple decades. The earlier you begin, the less you'll require to add each month to reach your retirement objectives. Here's something that might astonish you about retirement investing. If someone begins investing $300 monthly at age 25 and generates an average gain of 8% yearly, they'll possess around $1 million by age 65. But if they wait until age 35 to begin investing the identical amount, they'll only possess about $400,000 at retirement. That 10-year postponement cost them around $600,000. Time is literally cash when it comes to investing, and every month you wait to begin is cash you're discarding. But here's what's genuinely remarkable about this phase. Most individuals overthink it to the degree where they never genuinely begin investing. They dedicate months investigating the perfect investment approach, reading about different fund choices and analyzing cost ratios like they're attempting to resolve world hunger. The reality is, for most individuals, a straightforward diversified index fund that follows the overall market is perfectly sufficient for constructing wealth over time. You don't require to select individual company shares, predict the market, or outsmart professional investors. You just require to begin investing reliably and allow compound interest to do the intensive work. Once you've obtained your retirement investing on automatic pilot, it's time to address any debt that's not your home loan. This is where things can become emotionally intense because debt frequently represents past errors or circumstances beyond our authority. There are two primary approaches for clearing debt, and both of them function if you genuinely adhere to them. The initial is called the avalanche approach, where you clear debts with the steepest interest percentages first. Mathematically, this preserves you the most cash and interest charges over time. The second method is the snowball approach, where you clear your smallest debts first, regardless of interest percentages. This isn't the most financially ideal method, but it can be incredibly inspiring because you observe debts vanishing rapidly, which provides you momentum to continue advancing. I personally favor the snowball approach because personal finance is more about psychology than mathematics. If clearing your smallest debt first keeps you inspired to continue the procedure, then that's the appropriate approach for you, even if it costs you a few additional dollars in interest. The secret is selecting one approach and adhering with it until all your non-home loan debt is eliminated. Don't overthink it. Don't switch approaches halfway through. And definitely don't disregard your debt hoping it will mysteriously vanish. After you've handled your company retirement match and you're making advancement on debt payments, you can begin exploring other investment choices like opening your own retirement accounts or investing in regular brokerage accounts. A tax-free retirement account is particularly attractive because all your gains expand totally tax-free. You cover taxes on the cash you add now, but when you retire and begin withdrawing resources, you won't owe any taxes on the expansion. It's like planting a tree today and never having to cover taxes on the fruit it generates for the remainder of your existence. The contribution thresholds for these accounts change yearly, but the concept remains the identical. You're investing cash that you've already covered taxes on, and in exchange, all future expansion is yours to retain without sharing it with the government. For your regular investment accounts outside of retirement accounts, the tax situation is different. You'll cover capital gains taxes when you liquidate investments for a profit, but the tax percentage depends on how long you retained the investment. Retain it for more than a year, and you'll qualify for lower long-term capital gains percentages. Retain it for less than a year, and you'll cover regular income tax percentages on any gains. This is why accomplished investors consider long-term. They're not attempting to become wealthy rapidly by purchasing and liquidating shares constantly. They're constructing wealth gradually and steadily, while reducing the quantity they cover in taxes along the journey. The final phase that connects everything together is likely the most significant one, and it's the phase that separates individuals who genuinely construct wealth from individuals who just discuss constructing wealth. You require to automate everything we just discussed. Here's the aspect about willpower. It's like a muscle that becomes exhausted throughout the day. You might awaken Monday morning feeling inspired to handle your cash perfectly, but by Thursday evening, when you're exhausted from employment and stressed about existence, that inspiration has totally disappeared.